Okay. It's now 4:30 in the afternoon, August 24th, year of 2020. The Fitchburg Landmarks Preservation Commission is meeting this afternoon. And I'll ask our city representative, Lisa, do we have a quorum?
Yeah, we have a quorum.
Okay. And has this meeting been properly noticed as required under Wisconsin statutes?
Yes.
Okay, hearing that, I'll call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was on March 4th of 2020. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read them. They were submitted to us or prepared for us and recently sent online. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions that we'd like to make to those? I'm looking at the masked bandits and they're all shaking their head no. If that is the case, I'd like a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Move approval remotely.
Moved, and I'd like a second.
Second?
The minutes are moved in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Please let the record note that it's a unanimous vote.
Yeah, how do I find that?
Next item on our agenda is public appearances for non-agenda items. Based on the informational slips I have of citizen registration, I don't see anybody. Is there anything else that's been presented, Lisa? No? Okay, seeing that we have no other items there, we'll pass on to the next agenda item, which is review the agenda. And I see 2 items on the agenda. Is there anything else that you wanted added to the agenda, Lisa?
Actually, yes. Can I add one item? I noticed on the, in the memo, I included just a historic survey update. But maybe we could just discuss that during the report from department.
Okay,
I think that would be appropriate. So I think maybe we'll be okay there.
we'll do that under reports from the department then.
Okay.
That being the case, the first citizen request we have is from Jamie Gibbs. Is it Gibbs? Grib. And I can see you're here. Would you please come up to the front here, sit by the microphone for us?
Sure. I actually have a couple of show and tell items as well, which will help, and I realize it's a little weird to be touching things.
Well, first of all, welcome to the Landmarks Commission.
Thank you.
As the property owner of the McCoy House, I believe this is the first time we've had a chance to meet you.
It is.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I am here today to request the permission to put a screen porch on our house, on the front of the house facing, which would be the east side facing Sain Road. The mosquitoes in our area are prohibitive, and with all of the new development and no aeration going into all of the retention ponds, we can't really even use our outdoor space. So we would do so in keeping with the historic nature of the home, but we would really like to be able to use our space.
Okay. I believe in the materials that were presented to us, everybody saw a photo of the house and a proposed screening.
Right, and we purposely left that vague because we thought that could maybe be a discussion with you, whether we have, for example, this screen comes in 4-foot width, so there will be seams. But, you know, if the committee feels that should be black so it's less visible, although it would be very visible but against the cream colored brick, or white in keeping with the porch, we thought we would leave that open to discussion because we are less tied to that than actually having the goal of sitting outside. So.
Discussion from the members of the commission? I have one question.
Sure.
Is the screening that you're putting up going to be a permanent installation?
It would be something that could be taken down because it will be easy to do because there is an overhang on the porch roof and then the porch decking. So you can easily screw that in and take, I mean, we wouldn't plan on taking it down, but I think it would be, we would make it something that could be taken down. Yeah, it will not be affixed to the masonry of the home. It would be affixed to the wooden structure of the of the porch itself.
I was just wondering because I've seen screenings put up in panels. They have plastic frames that you then take those frames and attach them to the wood supports.
We would likely do it with wood because we would be doing it ourselves, and the plastic is probably not a material that we would use. It wouldn't really seem as in keeping with the, you know, we would custom cut the screens and build the panels and build the door.
Okay, the other question that came up in our general discussion, my general discussion as I looked at the materials and thought process, was it shows a double entry door?
I did reply to that. It does not have to be a double entry door. My sister-in-law had sort of mocked up a thing and she put that on there, but we have no need to have it be a double entry door. It could be just the same dimensions as the current screen door that goes into the house. That would be more proportionate.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that the fact that it's removable is a really important piece. I'm pleased to hear that because it won't be permanently changing the appearance. And I guess my largest concern would be that that door not stand out as strikingly in the appearance. From the photo you supplied, the appearance seems substantially the same and could be easily removed on either side, but that central door as configured there is very dominant in that appearance.
Yes, I don't think that's actually the goal. The goal would be to keep it the same size door as the door that currently is on the home.
Mm-hmm.
Especially given that we're going to be building this, I don't think Ty's super interested in building two doors when he could just build one.
Right. And the detail work on the bottom, they're trying to match the fencing. I think just a screened appearance there would be less obstructive from my point of view.
Okay. Thank you.
I had several questions that I had submitted earlier, and I think you've answered just about everything, so I'm satisfied with.
Thank you. Okay.
If there are no other questions, property owner?
Staff or the chair, since this is a kind of preliminary mock-up, would it be possible to grant a certificate of appropriateness and without requiring the applicants then to come back to the commission to ask staff to review the final appearance of that screening? I'm just thinking to minimize the whole request process. Because in a sense, we're approving a mock-up that looks different than what it's going to look like in the end. And I think it just would be, I'd feel more comfortable if we had staff, once we knew what it was going to look at it, take a look at it to make sure the intent of the commission is carried out there.
So you want to make a motion to that respect, Michael?
If that's permissible, yeah, move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness and condition that staff reviews the final design before it's installed.
Okay,
Can I just make one request then,
certainly.
if it's gonna go to staff approval, which I'm fine with if, the commission would like to do that, but that perhaps, with the approval, you specify a little bit more exactly sort of the design that you're looking for. So, I could maybe, we could add a condition with the language that final design of the porch modification, subject to staff approval, design shall include a single entry door with similar dimensions to the main door. Materials shall include only screening and door frame. Kind of a long condition, but it seems
Right.
to address sort of what Michael was saying, that, and what the commission seems to say, that they would prefer to have a single door as opposed to double, and that the design is more simple in nature rather than having sort of additional designs such as the matching railing on the bottom of the door. Does that sort of address the larger design comments?
Yes.
I think that covers it quite well.
Do you have preferences as to what color do you want there will have to be some support for the screens. Do you prefer that those are white, or the screen will be black, stainless screen? So would you prefer that that's black? I mean, it could go either way, right? If it's black, you'll see it against the house. If it's white, you'll see it against the contrast of the screen.
Where will the supports appear in your,
Well, the screen comes in 4-foot widths. So it will probably require 2 supports on each side of the door. Am I right, Ty?
Yeah, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yep.
yes,
Yeah, the vision I would have would be 4-foot wide, floor to ceiling panels, probably with 1 intermediate horizontal support, because that's awfully big and we do get some real wind there. And they would be, as you mentioned, removable, kind of just set them up in place, attach them somehow, some sort of bracket. So there would be vertical floor to ceiling braces and 1 horizontal brace per panel. And, we can just kind of divide that space up into 4-foot widths.
and what is the length you have currently 4 vertical white uprights on the front of the porch. I don't know how long is that porch, how many additional vertical uprights would it be added there that would be visible?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I would imagine it's got to be 3 at the fewest, 3 to 4 per side.
Per side, so we would have an appearance then that would have 1 horizontal line running on each side and an additional 4 vertical line. Give it almost a checkerboard look, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and we have we could stagger the horizontals. There's a lot of flexibility there. And, it's conceivable we could even probably hide the horizontal behind the railing, perhaps. We could do something like that. It would be a long span, but it's probably not too long.
I posed my fellow commissioners, but I guess that I was imagining an appearance similar to the image that was shown, and breaking up both of those sides where you would have, in a sense, 8 additional squares, if you would, on each side of the 2 central pillars.
I may have been misseeing this in my mind. I do not have it in front of me. It may be closer, the primary opening may be closer to 8 or 12 feet, so it might only be 2 then. but I have to measure it because again, the screen is a very standard product and it doesn't really come easily in widths over 4 foot.
I think it would be two verticals per side from the road and one vertical on the short dimensions of the porch.
Yeah, and I think that's almost certainly true in that the end verticals would be hidden behind the beams so that they would not stand out as separate verticals. So you could have 3 panels, but you would only see 2 verticals.
And no horizontals.
We could hide the horizontals behind the railing.
And what color would those be?
The what?
The verticals and the horizontals?
We were kind of asking what your preference would be. Again, we can try to make it stand out, so it's not obviously hidden, or we can use a more mute color that would tend to not distract the eye.
Mm-hmm.
I would think the black would be preferable.
That's my thought too, because suddenly I imagined a very different look from the road where, in a sense, we go from its current appearances to, like I said, almost a checkerboard in front, and the white would really look like it had a design element there, and if it could.
Yeah, I have a proposal that I would build just one of these panels and I can set it up for you.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it'd be very easy to change colors or any other aspect of it. And if it was acceptable, we'd go forward. If not, we could discuss it some more.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be really hard to understand what this looks like until we actually put one up.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm hearing from the panel that we want black, and if you paint the supports black as well, I think they'll blend in nicely and disappear. And I like the concept of putting the horizontal supports at the level or approximately the level of the railing or just across the front of the porch, because to make them invisible.
Yep.
And that should get rid of that checkerboard appearance that Michael was concerned about.
I concur that it should be a dark color, black or dark gray color that would hide that. That would work best.
Just for clarification, would the framing of the door be a dark color as well, or white?
What color is the current door?
Well, the current door is red.
So it stands out
But-
so people can see the entrance.
Yeah. I don't envision, that's a lot of work to paint something red. It's 4 coats, I learned. But the porch, all the other than the decking, the porch is white. So that would be an easy choice too, or we could have it be black, the same color as the,
Again, I think if it was black, it would basically disappear with the rest of the black screening and supports. If that would be adequate for people to find your front door, I think that would be, my first choice would be to have it so there's one uniform color. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think to the extent that the addition of the porch looks like a modern temporary screen, what it is. It's designed to keep the mosquitoes off the porch and not an attempt to in effect redesign or make something look different, and to the extent it not stand out, because again, right now on the image when that was provided in the packet, that white painted door stands out, catches the eye immediately in the front, and I agree with you, Mike, that making that as unseparately noticeable would help it blend in.
those provisions sound acceptable?
They do. I mean, our goal here is to just be able to use our front porch. So like I said, we are willing to be flexible.
Okay, so we have,
And in those conditions that we asked staff to look at, I think the offer to make the mock-up would actually give staff an opportunity to see if it met what we had talked about, if that would be acceptable. So if we can add that to the list of conditions, that would avoid another trip for the owners to come back for approval.
she's shaking her head yes?
Yeah, so maybe for the record, I'll just summarize the things that we discussed, and then when you make a motion, I had included the two just sort of standard condition, well, one standard. So one of the conditions is no other permit or approval is waived or deemed satisfied except for the approval provided herein, and then approval is based on submitted application materials and what the approval is for. So we would add a third condition that final design of porch modification shall be subject to staff approval. Design shall comply with the following. We would have a single entry door with similar dimensions to the main entry door with only screening and a frame. Horizontal framing shall be hidden behind the porch railing, and then framing shall be black or dark gray. And I think that addresses all the items. And then if, I think if it meets those requirements and there's not a huge variation, if there were, then I would ask that it come back to commission in case some of those things don't work out when the design is sort of finally mocked up.
Okay.
But I think I would be comfortable, with that.
Okay,
I so move with those conditions.
we have a motion with conditions and a second.
I'll second.
I have 2 seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record note, this decision is unanimous as the motion with approved conditions. And we'll thank the property owner for bringing in the information she did. I believe there is one other question that came up about the railing that used to be on the roof.
Yes. That came to me. I don't know where it came from.
Sure.
Would you like me to tell what I know happened and what I know?
If you know more than us, we certainly appreciate it.
So that porch has a rubber roof, which we re-roofed in 2015. And what happened is the roofer said, these are all rotten, and he took it off, and we were standing in the yard, and we said, this looks a lot better. And I said, wait a minute, I have photos. And I went in the house and I grabbed these photos, and the porch didn't used to have that railing. Now I can show you these photos. There's horses in the yard, so I think it's pretty legitimate that the porch at some iteration did not have that railing on top. And then, so we chose to leave it off, and when we resubmitted everything to the state after that project, they approved it with the railing off. I showed them the photos as well. So, and I didn't know at the time that I needed something from the certificate of appropriateness, so I apologize for that. So that's how that happened. It sort of happened naturally, but it turned out was the way the house was.
I'd like to add something, and thank you for providing the background. I asked that the original documentation for the landmarking be included in the packet, which was really helpful. And especially Exhibit A to the resolution back in, I think it was 1998 on page 2, indicates that this particular porch was added in 1980 with a balustraded top at that time. And so it's really good to have that earlier documentation of why a property was listed and useful information about what was originally there. So
I think the porch was rebuilt several times. You can see the marks on the front of the house where the porch outlines have been. And even in the 2 photos I have here today, there's different vertical columns. So it's clearly not been a permanent structure.
And that report from 98 goes on, says, evidence indicates the front porch originally extended across the front of the house. Evidence of the original porch can be seen by dark markings on the brick. Current owners replaced a smaller porch with a porch that once again extends in front of the house, which is supported by 4 wooden columns. So your conclusions are backed up by this document from the 1990s.
So I guess hearing that, we have no reason to be concerned about the porch not having a railing.
No, do you want to see the photos? Okay.
Lisa did provide us with one of the
Okay.
photos. But we also had other photos showing the railing, and that's why the question came up.
Okay, right.
So any other discussion on that from the commission? Again, thank you for providing that documentation, and having those photos is a very nice blessing to have, so that we can't look back in history, but we can certainly look at the photos. So
Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you.
thank you for sharing those.
And thank you for your stewardship of this property.
We're trying. Thank you.
Some years ago, our Fitchburg Historical Society had the former owners allow people in as a tour, and they use it as a fundraiser for the Historical Society. We have the president of the Historical Society sitting here. I don't know if he'd be interested in talking with you about something like that again in the future, but it was I went. It was very well attended. A lot of people are interested in that home because of so much history that it has in the city of Fitchburg.
I think that's a possibility, but I need to repaint the trim. We've had 2 small children, one of whom was born while we were living there, so there's a lot of dump truck marks on our trim right now that need to be fixed. And then maybe it would be more presentable.
No ghostly sounds coming from the basement?
Nope, no sounds coming from the
Oh, good.
basement.
That's good.
Nope, nope.
As a president of the Fitchburg Historical Society, we always look forward to people being willing to open their house occasionally. Certainly, we wouldn't ask it be open all the time, but maybe a couple times a year, have maybe a weekend. That would be great.
I would be open to talking more about that. I mean, our children are 8 and 10 now and not an infant and 2, so things are a lot simpler in our lives to make things like that happen.
Super, thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got that taken care of, our certificate of appropriateness with conditions. Next up is certificate of appropriateness for 2733 County Trunk Highway MM. Michael Croft, construction of a new house. And we did have a discussion at an earlier Landmarks Commission meeting, basically to give us an update as to the possibility of this happening. And you're here today to ask for the certificate of appropriateness.
Yes, thank you. And I think the write-up that was provided pretty much says it all. If you don't mind, I would just indicate that we are looking to construct a single-story home north of the existing farmhouse by about 250 feet north. We wouldn't impact at all any of the existing structures, and I would like to note that there is a 100-foot-long gray shed there that is not a contributing structure, so that one would not be covered by the historic designation, and that we would most likely be rehabbing that one at some point in the future, but it is not one of the historic structures. But there are 5 there that are contributing structures: the farmhouse, the smokehouse, the granary, the silo, and the barn, and we would not be touching any of those as part of this project. So we are seeking a certificate of appropriateness to instead put a deed restriction on the existing farmhouse so that we don't need to totally remodel that and try to retain the existing historic fabric that we have left in this very old part of Fitchburg. We don't have many of these sites in the city anymore, and so this is what we think is a very good idea to help protect the farmhouse. even beyond what the city regulations require. So we are seeking a certificate of appropriateness to put the deed restriction on the existing farmhouse and build a new residence hundreds of feet to the north.
As I recall, during our last meeting where we talked, the major issue that I gathered was, will this inhibit someone being able to see the structure, the historic buildings, when you have your new home, and you had indicated that it would not interfere with that?
That's correct, yeah.
Since we've had awareness of this for some time, I wasn't sure if anybody else had additional questions. I had one question, Mike.
Yes.
And what's going to be the status of the existing home you're living in? Are you going to sell that?
Eventually that would be sold, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's on a separate parcel from the historic site properties?
that's correct.
Okay, so it's a separate independent parcel,
That's correct.
so that would not be any impact on the parcel we're talking about?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, at our last discussion of this, I had asked our city contact, Lisa, to run past our city attorney the deed restriction that you provided for us. And our city attorney does have a couple modifications, additions that she would like to have included in that deed restriction. Would you just give us a brief update?
Sure,
Lisa?
yeah, so this would be another thing that we would amend the conditions that were proposed in the memo. So I'll just go over those for the record quickly too, that so no other permit or approval is waived or deemed satisfied except for the approval provided herein. Approval is based on submitted applications and materials. The third one is the deed restriction shall be recorded prior to issuance of permits. And based on conversations with the city attorney, I would suggest adding a fourth condition that the deed restriction shall be approved by the city attorney prior to recording. And that would be the condition. And then just some background, just two things she had initially identified was that it should more clearly state what is no longer allowed. So I think maybe she felt the language is a little vague and just saying like no occupancy is permitted or it won't be used as a residence. Rather, it should be a little more explicit. And then also stating that, you know, if compliance were ever an issue, that fines could be issued based on city ordinance. And I just have the language that she should approve it because we didn't have a lot of time to sort of formalize exactly what the language should look like. So then the city attorney will have a chance to sort of review the language and sign off on it before it gets recorded.
Does that sound reasonable, Mike?
That does very much, yes. Thank you.
As I told Lisa, we're not attorneys, and we want to make sure that the wording of the proposed recorded document will be something that meets all the criteria of the city's ordinances,
Yep.
and yet protects your rights as a property owner as well.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing that discussion, knowing that we'll have the situation with the city attorney reviewing the deed restriction, would somebody like to make a motion on the accept certificate of appropriateness for this property?
Turn green. I move to accept the condition of appropriateness for the property.
With conditions as discussed?
With conditions as discussed.
Super. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please let the record note unanimous decision to approve the certificate of appropriateness with the appropriate language as provided by our coordinator, Lisa, and with the review of the deed restriction and update with the city attorney. And I'm sure when that's done, Mike will send that to you so that you can see it. I don't think these conditions are very restrictive. I think it's just a matter of making sure we've got our ducks covered. Okay?
We would want that as well. Thank you. Thank you.
And again, thank you for being a great steward of that property. It's been very helpful for you to come in and share this with us in advance so we knew what was going on. Appreciate that very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Next thing on our agenda, our report from the department.
Sure, so this is item C in the memo. I just thought I'd give an update on the historic survey. I know at our last meeting, we sort of discussed at length about notifying property owners, getting the letter sent out, and then sort of seeing what the response was to see if anybody would be interested in learning more about the National Register of Historic Places. So, did end up sending out the letters to all the properties that were identified in the survey as being potentially eligible. And initially, I did have a response from 3 of the property owners. So the Chalet Gardens Apartments, which was a historic district, the Opitz House, and then the Boyce F. Tots House. They got back to me, and I sort of talked with them a little bit more about it, but at this point in time, haven't gotten any of the property owners to sort of commit to it in writing that they would want to go through the nomination process and have the city apply for a grant to help cover the cost of that. So, I think that deadline that we had sort of been working towards was for September, because that was when the letter of intent would have been due to the Wisconsin State Historical Society. So at this point, we don't have any property owners who are interested. I think, the Chalet Gardens Apartments, for example, just had questions about what would potentially be eligible, because the real benefit for a lot of property owners is the tax credit program. And so they were, at this point, I think they're still just talking to the Wisconsin State Historical Society about the details of the program. So it's not to say that any of them ended up following up and saying they were no longer interested. I think it's more just that process of educating the property owners and making sure that they understand the benefits, a lot of the things we talked about at the meeting. So I think, hopefully I can continue to try to engage with those property owners just as a city staff member, and maybe make sure that they can get the information that they need. And, as commission, you guys could also decide to do more formal outreach or, any recommendations like that. Nothing has to be decided today, but, we did the survey so that we would know that these properties are in the city, and now we can kind of continue figuring out, what to do with those results, whether or not it's just educating residents at large or, trying to get more properties listed. So just thought I'd give an update that we won't be moving forward right now with the grant, but it'll still be there every year if property owners end up wanting to apply.
Lisa, I suspect that the COVID, our last meeting was in March, right before this whole thing broke out, and this whole process usually involves public meetings and the like, and that too, I think, people have other things on their minds right now, and hopefully when we have a vaccine and a therapy, God willing, next year, might be time for a kind of a restart as we get back to something closer to normal, and people may be more interested at that time. So something to keep in mind.
Those are very good points, Michael, and as we look at the response we got, I was very happy. We had 3 property owners that did express some interest in it, but the COVID-19 pandemic has already created havoc with everything everybody's doing, and I think that would be, as you suggested, a good thing to think about is restarting next year when we do have some more calm in our society so that we can do these things at whole meetings and people not be afraid that they're going to go out and possibly come back with something they don't want. So I'm very happy to hear that we had some positive response. I think that hearing that they're interested is a strong plus for us, that we can work with them. But I also think that working with them in the future is probably going to be the best avenue at this point. Any other discussion on that? Okay, I think it's good to know, Lisa, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else from the department that we should be aware of?
Not at this time, no.
Excellent, thank you for that. Are there any announcements to be made? Nobody standing up and shouting out an announcement. Okay, that takes us to our last item on our agenda, which is adjournment. And again, I can't see the clock because of the reflection. 5:10. 5:10 on this afternoon of August 24th. I'd ascertain a motion to adjourn the Landmarks Commission meeting.
So move.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And please let the record note, a unanimous decision. And thank you, Lisa, for all your help in preparing the materials and getting them out to us in a timely manner. It makes it much handier for us when we can see them and have a chance to discuss them in advance. And make sure that we have the correct questions to ask when we get here. So thank you for your help on that again. It's very much appreciated. With that, I'll call this meeting to a close. Thank you, everyone.